What's up? All right.
Hey everybody, just getting set up here. I didn't do an intro at all. I just hopped
Whatever.
right on. What's going on?
Nothing much, man. How's it going?
Not a whole lot. Everyone, this is Kane. Nick
Tell
is
people.
his real name, but I call him Kane, as do most of our friends. Let me just get your volume, excuse me, set. Uh, Kane and I have been friends for how long, Kane?
Oh God, like almost 10 years now.
Close to 10 years. We played in a band together for about that. We know each other really well. We are bestest of friends, basically, as with the rest of the guys in our band. Let me just get notes up before we start. Hang on 1 second. Oh, I'm so unprepared. Yeah, I let it go a few more minutes. Sorry for not the exact 8 o'clock time, guys. It seems like our people kind of filter in a little bit later in general, and that's cool. Fashionably late. you,
That's the way to
you,
be.
you know what I mean? Um, so I mean, I guess we might as well get rolling here. There's
Yeah.
not really any reason to diddle around. We get a lot of viewers after the fact. The other day I got done with my stream, I had like 60 viewers overnight.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, so this is the
That's
crowd we
sick.
got. It's like a podcast. I really enjoy that. Before we get going, guys, if you have any questions or whatever, throw them in the chat. We'll get to them when we can. Tuesday nights is kind of more for the interview. I like to spend my time with whoever the guest is. And on Thursdays, we'll kind of circle back around, but I'm sure we'll have some point during this where we can answer any questions. So Kane here is, like I said, one of my best friends. We've had sort of like similar lives, I suppose. Um, Both aware and working actively on our mental health every day. In fact, it was kind of a change of pace that you actually reached out to me and were like, "Dude, can I can I come on?" Usually, I'm like, "Can you please come on? Can you please come on?" So I really appreciate that. Um,
Yeah, man.
what
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
what made you want to do it? What made you want to come on?
Honestly, because I know how difficult it can be to talk about the type of things that you are very open to discuss with everyone around, and for myself and for others to just kind of show them that like, hey, like this is okay to talk about.
Yeah, it's kind of like my hope is that someone who is broken will hear these conversations and realize that like being broken and being alone don't really have to be the same thing. They don't have to happen at the same time. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we kind of, when you feel like you're in pain, you feel like no one uh, will understand you or whatever it is. But that's not really true. People know, and that doesn't mean your pain isn't unique to you or anything like that. That it's not valid. But
Right.
like, just remember that you're not alone for sure.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I appreciate you coming on a lot, man. I love talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I feel like every time we get together, we kind of go on these tangents about different things, whether it's politics or religion. Actually, I think we spent like the better part of our 6 years complaining. Like the first 6 years, we knew each other bitching about religion.
Yeah, definitely.
We're not gonna do any of that today, I promise, because I've said here multiple times that like if religion is something that helps you, it hasn't helped me, but everybody's unique. If it helps you, like all the power to you. I'm not gonna take something good away from you. Um,
Agreed.
so I know like one thing I wanted to touch on with you, dude, was I remember you telling me like anxiety slash depression, ADHD were kind of like part of your childhood. I think you were telling me you were on Ritalin like pretty young. You had like
Yeah.
seen some people. Just kind of talk about like your introduction into mental health, what that was like as a kid.
So my first introduction of that would be me being diagnosed with what was ADHD. I feel like now it's just ADD. I don't really, as an
Mm.
adult, have the hyperactivity at all. But and that was I was probably diagnosed with that when I was like 7, And
Wow.
I don't really remember much of like getting tested for it or any of that, but I just remember like being basically like a wild child in school. Like I couldn't fucking sit still. I'm just slinging pencils across the classroom, messing with other kids, and
Yeah.
so like I eventually went to the doctor and they put me on Ritalin at like age 8,
Wow.
and so yeah, and I was on various sorts of different ADD and ADHD medications from the age of 8 to 22,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for ADD, the medications, some of them definitely did help more so than others. Like some of them had terrible side effects where like I wasn't like eating, I was like losing a dramatic amount of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them would like laser focus me to the point where like I really didn't have much emotion about anything because I was just so focused in on whatever was happening or whatever was catching my attention.
Felt like you were droning almost. I hear people say that
Yeah,
a lot. It's like you're kind of
like
just like you're focused, but there's no personality.
yes,
Right.
exactly that. So that played. I never, as a child, thought much about it because I don't think I really understood what it was because it was literally never explained to me.
It was just kind of something that happened.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it was basically just, at least my recollection of it, that's how it was. It was basically just like, I remember being in like elementary school and having to go to the nurse's office every day at like 11:30 or like a few minutes before lunch so I could take my Ritalin. And like I never really questioned it. It was just like I was told, okay, you gotta take this now, and there was no questions asked. But then
So
as I got into
go ahead.
high school, I started to like understand what was really going on, and identifying the fact that, especially when I wasn't taking it, that I was very unfocused, extraordinarily impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
And all during this, like, that was the only thing I was really conscious of that was going on negatively within myself. Everything else, like the anxiety, the depression that I had been experiencing for very long periods of time, I was not self-aware of until my early 20s when I had my first like real panic attack.
So do you think like the medication was sort of like preventing you from actually like facing like what was going on through maybe like talk therapy? Were you doing any of that as a kid?
No, I wasn't doing any of that. I think it was more just like putting me in an overall haze where I wasn't like able to really evaluate myself objectively from the outside, and to be able to like look at the fact that I was feeling these negative things other than just being unfocused. But I mean, like a lot of times anxiety and depression do come with ADD.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
They're all very closely linked, a lot more than most people would know or think. But especially because anxiety was actually when I was funny. I was talking about this to a friend of mine today earlier. Like looking back on my past, like some of my earliest like memories ever are of me being anxious.
Interesting. Now, what was that
So
like
like
for you though? Like, what did you think
honestly,
it was? Did you think there was something wrong with you?
no, it just like I never really paid any mind to it because like it was something that was literally so active, and I was very uneducated about anxiety growing up until literally like high school. I never really like identified with it, which is ironic because that's literally like me to my core is just
Sure.
constant anxiety. But
Yeah. I get it. Me too.
learning how to deal with it and manage it and stay ahead of it.
So
Yeah, I remember some of my earliest memories just being like almost remembering it like a dream where you only remember bits and pieces because it was so long ago.
Early memories
like,
are kind of like that anyway, I feel.
I remember like the deep rooted anxiety that I felt, and until like my early 20s when I had my first big panic attack, like it was never addressed as something like negatively with my mental health. So once that was identified, I started to see a psychiatrist and seeing therapists, and they were able to help identify that I have an anxiety disorder.
Now, what was it like? See, my the reason I have so many questions about like early on for you is, for me, like the anxiety and depression came like later in life, like it was triggered by trauma or like whatever. So to see it like diagnosed young like it was for you is like uncharted territory, and I know it's super common. Now, like the social aspect of it, like when you were, say, in high school, you said around 20 is when you really started to think that something was going on, that you needed to deal with it. What were you able to talk to it? Were you talk about it with your friends? Were you afraid to? Did you think there was something
Um,
wrong so you couldn't share it? Like, were you
Honestly,
embarrassed?
my at that point lack of talking about it was just like it wasn't something I was acknowledging, especially in my early 20s. I was in college, and especially you know this, I was drinking very heavily at the time and
Yeah,
very often. So like I was not able to logically assess many feelings at all.
sure. So it was almost like part of your programming growing up was that the anxiety and all this stuff was kind of just a part of the program, and you were just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah,
It was
it
just
was just like
there.
something that was so ever present in my life that like I just wrote it off because it was just kind of something like, hey, this is part of who I am. Like I don't know what
Right.
it is, but like it's me.
Well, and I remember like I think it was a little later than 20. Whenever like we first met, you would joke about it often, like your self-deprecating humor. But like at the
Yeah.
time we were young, I was uneducated about it. I didn't realize that you were actually dealing with this like panic attacks and things like that. You said that was the breakthrough for you, right? Was your first big panic attack? Talk about
Yeah.
that.
So my first big panic attack, I was in college and I was at a different college. I transferred from Central to Western to try to get into a program that I couldn't get into at Central. And when I got down to Western, it was very bad vibes from the get go.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in a suite style dorm with like four other guys, and three of them were just absolutely terrible people. Um, and I was getting bullied a lot by them and pressured into doing things that I really didn't want to be a part of. So I was feeling very lonely and lost. I hadn't made any friends down there. Like there was like one girl that lived across the hallway from her. Like she like I don't know if she felt bad for me or what, or just saw that I was having trouble, you know,
Sure.
making friends and stuff. And she would come over and hang out with me sometimes. But other than that, I didn't really have anyone. And I remember one day I went to class and I got back like a test that I'd studied really hard for, and I completely bombed it. And like for
Oh.
whatever reason, that was like my breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was taking the bus back to my dorm from class after that, and like I just broke down. Like I was a sobbing mess on the bus. Like people are staring at me. Like it's really awkward, but like
That's the
I felt
worst
like
part is when you're
everything
around
in my
people.
brain, it felt like it just broke.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was feeling a million different things at once, had no control over like any of my thoughts, and just so much was racing through my mind. I remember getting back to my dorm and like my roommates were around, so I was like, okay, I need to be by myself. So I went out to my car and I was sitting in the parking lot and I called my dad, who was in Florida at the time. And I called him and like I immediately broke down and he's like, what's wrong? And I said, I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
And we talked for a few more minutes and he's like, oh, like, kiddo, I'm sorry I can't be here for you right now, but you're having a panic attack. You need to go to your nearest medical center or whatever. So I ended up getting in my car and driving across Danbury to get to the other campus where the medical center was. And I get there and like I literally like borderline made a scene. Like
Mm-hmm.
I ran up to the receptionist desk and I was like screaming. I was like, I need to see someone right now.
Holy shit.
And like that, I was so loud about it that it got the attention of the
Yeah,
doctor.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
doctor immediately understood what was happening with me and like brought me into the back and like sat with me for like 2 hours doing deep breathing exercises.
Wow.
So after that, like I remember like I got dismissed from class for the next few days after that. So I ended up going home to my parents' house to just relax. And I remember just those next few days, like I just didn't feel right. I felt like I was overall in a fog. And it was like very strange. And after that, like because of the incident, they recommended that I go see a professional, and that's when they signed me up with a psychiatrist and a therapist. I started doing that, and that became the introduction to my journey of being self-aware of what's going on inside me and doing something about it.
That's great, man. I thank you for sharing that story, man. That's I think there's people here in the chat right now. I don't know if you have it up on your Twitch, but people saying, "Hey, that's the worst." Like you're not alone in going through that. And also
Yeah.
like that must have been really scary for you to reach out even to your dad because
Oh, dude, I was terrified.
your parents
like,
are you guys don't know, Kane's parents are older. Like they're how old are your parents? Your dad I know is pretty old.
my dad is 75
Yeah.
and my mom is 63, I think.
So that like the generational gap and like understanding of like mental health it's got to be tough, right?
Yes and no. Not so much with my mom because she has anxiety just like I do. Her knowledge and what she does about her anxiety is completely different from how I handle my own, but that's fine. To each their own, and we all have various things that work differently for us.
Yeah, that's how it is.
So like on her end, like she understood because like she has like an as needed medication in case she has a panic attack, God forbid. So like everyone has their own way of dealing with it. So I mean a lot of people have talked about how like things like anxiety and depression can be like hereditary, like in your genetics. So like if that's the case, like I'm not surprised that I have it because my mom has it.
Yeah, my mom does too. So does my uncle. We all deal with it. It was something that it had triggered me. Because for me, and the reason why it was so scary, like for me, was my upbringing was like pretty good, like about as like cliche white kid from Connecticut it could possibly be, like Sunday barbecues and wrestling tournaments and all that. So it was like the barrier for me was like, how do I say with all these happy people that like I don't get what's going on in my head, and like I don't want to live anymore, So that was tough for me. And again, like I'm going to reiterate to you guys watching that like getting help, the way you do it and the kind you get, it's all going to be totally based on you. It's going to be unique to you.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we all go through it, but your help is going to be different. So like some people might take medication and therapy. Some people might just do therapy or just medication or whatever. It doesn't, it all depends on you.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think like timeline where we are here. So this is probably what, like 2010, 11, around the time we met each other. Yeah, because you were going to Western when I met you.
Yeah, that was like I hadn't been in the band for that long, like maybe a few months.
Yeah, when you were bald.
Yep. Oh God, I try to forget that.
So talk about kind of what that period was for you. Like music, was it a crutch for you? How helpful was it? Maybe even the bad ways, because like I know we drank a lot, we partied a lot, we fucked around, like
right.
Talk about what that was like for you.
Honestly, music was, especially at that point in time, really a double-edged sword in a lot of ways, because it was great for the aspect of like the camaraderie and the brotherhood that the six of us always had together.
Still do.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about having met you guys is like. Even since we don't make music together anymore, it's like we're still all best friends, and I can call any of you at a drop of a hat and literally talk to any of you. You could 3 hours
in a complete mess of a state too, and like someone's gonna pick up, and we're gonna have a talk.
Exactly. So that aspect has always been incredible, and then obviously the musical aspect itself was always like positive for me because I mean I've been a musician for literally 20 years. I started playing bass when I was 9, and I'm not gonna stop until I physically can't. So like that's all, especially doing it with other people. You really just feel a sense of togetherness, and that's always been positive.
And like the act of playing is also kind of like a meditation, especially like being on stage and kind of just like letting go of everything and just like living in the music. I would just shut everything off and just live in the moment. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Like when we opened for The Devil Wears Prada that time, at the Webster Theater, and we were the last band to play on the little stage, right? And the gate was going to open after we played, so everyone that was there was jammed in. Crim's in the chat right now, so he was there too. You remember we opened for The Devil Wears Prada, and just letting go. Like I had shit going on in my life, and just being in it, and just not even just playing it, just like those live shows in general, just that togetherness and that safety of the energy that's in that room. Like you can't replicate that. You can't.
No, you can't. And that was easily for me the peak for being in any sort of project, especially what we did together, was that live show. Like, because I mean, one of the biggest compliments I think we always got as a band from people was literally our level of energy.
Yep.
Like we were literally all wild in some way, shape, or form, just doing our thing, like all just feeling it all individually and
Yeah.
then together too. And I think that was one of the best parts because obviously, especially being the person who wrote the lyrics for the band, like we put a lot of feeling and emotions into those
Yeah, we
songs
did.
and those riffs.
Yeah.
And being able to share that with other people and like just feel that love and the sense of a collective was just like there was nothing like it. Like the feeling of stepping off stage, like yeah, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, but that certain like high you feel after you
Dude,
just played a
I
set.
used to get
Like
off stage
there's
and be
literally nothing
shaking.
comparable to that. Oh yeah.
I'd
I'd
like
be
shaking. Yeah.
shaking like I mean you remember how it is. I'd immediately like before I even started loading off my gear, I'd be like, I need to go outside, have a cigarette,
Yeah.
and just like chill out for a minute because like just that feeling was so overwhelming, but like in a good way. Like it just felt so good just to have that release for whatever I was releasing, whether it was negative energy from just anxiety and depression in my own life or whatever. Like it was just nice to go out there and share how essentially we felt with other people.
Yeah, it was amazing the ability that we had of connecting with the people we played in front of too.
Yeah.
And I really miss that. I got it a lot because I was the front man. So people would always come up to me after and have, conversations. Hey, I used to love people would come up to me and be like, hey, I had a really bad day today. And I came here. And it's kind of the same feeling I get doing this now. I feel like since then I've always been trying to chase that feeling of connection with everyone around me, and I feel like that is so like important. And if you deal with mental health problems, is finding whether it's a band or it's a Twitch community or I know people that are recovering addicts that go to meetings all the time. And they meet people at their meetings and they have their communities and camaraderie. Like I think camaraderie is so important. No matter where you are in your mental health journey, right?
I mean, we all need each other. Like I've always been a firm believer that the world would be a far better place if we all just showed each other a little bit more caring and understanding.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And like if everyone treated each other that way, like we would have a better sense of camaraderie as a species of humans,
Oh, and that's why we have these conversations.
It's nice to know that in these groups like AA, NA, or anything like that, even what we're doing right now, like that sense of camaraderie to know just like, hey, whether or not you're going through the ringer or not, other people have gone through the ringer as well personally and have come out the other end.
Yeah, and you're safe. You're safe here no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, it really is amazing. Crim's commented, the Lizard Lounge was the beginning. No, it wasn't. It was the end, actually. that was at the end.
Summer of Spice was the beginning.
Yeah, that was the Summer of Spice. Hold on, I'm getting unclear here, huh? I'm gonna try to focus my camera. And I don't know if it's gonna work. Hold on, let's see here. I'm gonna turn my camera off for a second and turn it back on, and that'll probably fix it. There we go. Perfect. So Summer of Spice, that's a great segue into the next part. So let's talk about the negative, like the things that are bad.
Ooh,
like so we had this good, supporting group, but we were also in our early 20s. We were all in college. There was a lot of vices being thrown around. A lot of people, probably 6 dudes who weren't really sure what the hell we were doing with our lives and just looking for some good fun. I think our hearts were in the right place.
I don't think I could have summed that up better.
Yeah, but do you think what do you think was bad about it? Drinking's the obvious one, right?
Yeah, drinking, but just especially I was obviously the most guilty of the 6 of us for indulging in that.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, it's fine. I was obviously very guilty with that, but because I remember going to like parties after shows and stuff, or even when we just didn't have anywhere to go and we would just go back to Blue House where John was living, and we were hanging out there with all the guys and just like drinking. Like cigarettes were bad.
I know. I got hooked for a little while, man.
All
I
of
got
us.
a jewel.
even like John and Cam, who weren't even like active like cigarette smokers at the time, like you, me, and Chris were like almost going through a pack a night themselves. Like, meanwhile, like me and Chris are probably smoking at least a pack and a half, 2 cigarettes if we're after a show and the drinks are flowing and all that. Like,
what do you think that was though? Was it, you think it was because everyone was doing it? You know, was it that? I think that's kind of what got me messing with cigarettes.
That's part of it, because like,
everyone was doing it.
It's ironic because like we were just talking about the camaraderie of, you know, positive support groups, but there's also negative camaraderie with people who drink together, people who do drugs together, because believe it or not, there is some sort of messed up camaraderie there. Like, you have, you know, say like you're an alcoholic and like you hang out with other alcoholics, you have validation in your own support for that addiction, you know?
And we were too young to even really recognize it for it was. We thought it was funny. We were like, yeah, I'm gonna go home and, you know, wallow in my misery and, you know, go kill a pint of Captain.
Or it's like, hey, I'm gonna have 9 drinks, slap John, call him a bitch, and that's the night.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's funny how we thought it was cool, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah,
really.
it really wasn't, and like that's what I cringe the most about when I think back to those times. Is how freaking cool we thought we were.
We were assholes,
like,
bro.
Yeah, looking back on it, it's like, A, we were assholes, and it's just like, B, we were just dumb.
Yeah.
We were just doing dumb shit.
And Krim is saying in the chat right now, there was a collective misery. We were young, and none of us knew how to channel it.
And, well, you know, nail on the head with that. Like, that's perfect. Especially because I feel like we were all, like, trying to figure out our paths in life. Like, the only thing we really knew at the time was that we loved playing music with each other. You know?
Yep.
And it's weird, back to the, like, the thing about, like, partying, especially in the aspect of, like, bands, like, for me, mentally, part of it was almost, like, celebrating.
Yeah, I think that was like, part of it, too. Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, it's just, like, we got to a point where we were gigging at least once a week, every week, for months at a time.
Drinking from Thursday to Sunday night. Every
essentially.
Thursday kicked it off, and we would keep going. And I don't regret those times either, man, because...
I don't either. Like, even though that, like, I'm ashamed of a lot of my behavior during those times, it's all a lesson, and, like, I can't just, like, shut that out and pretend like it doesn't exist. I need to continue learning from that.
Well, yeah, we know, like, here we are, 30. You're going to be 30, right?
Yeah.
Here we are. So, now we know that, like, everything can be okay in moderation.
Absolutely.
Even moderation. Right?
Finding that moderation, though, man, easier said than done.
I miss those times, man. I really do. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I think it, like, forced us, especially when it ended. And I know for me, like, when all that ended and I graduated college and it was kind of like, okay, it's time to get a job now. I stopped. Around that time is when your negative mental health started. Yeah,
really rear its ugly head.
I had gotten into the corporate world and just work. No time to, like, be creative or, you know, be with myself. Had those negative aspects of me that I never learned how to deal with. So they started coming up and I had no way of dealing with it. And I, you know, got involved with bad relationship, and it was kind of like a perfect storm / cocktail of, like, pretty much anything bad that could happen to someone. Like, you know, I had death in the family, you know, getting cheated on, you know, the bad job and all that. And I got into therapy after I had questioned my life, and I, you know, that was hard for me to even get there. But I remember my therapist telling me, like, hey, you were in a band for 7-8 years and you just stopped. It's like you have this gigantic hole that you're not filling. You know, so that's how I started getting into writing. You know, did you experience that at all? Well, you've kind of stayed the path.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the whole, like, what you just said, the whole time I wasn't, because I mean, I hadn't really been playing music since our last band ended up until last year when I started hanging out with the band I'm currently playing in. And that period of time was definitely really dark, and one of the things I tried to fill that void with was what ended up being a bad relationship.
Yep. We both did that.
Yep.
So you think that's what it was? Because I think that's kind of what it was for me. Was I was just trying to, fill a hole that wasn't being filled with something, and it was
Yeah,
I didn't even understand like what a relationship should be or anything yet. I was just kind of just trying to do it for the sake of doing it, and it nearly fucking killed me, bro. So it was like
I know, dude. I remember those
we
dark times.
And I'll ask you. I mean, why you think it's just because we were trying to fill that hole?
Maybe not so much just that, but like that's for me at least. That was the largest part of whatever reasons I was feeling the need to lock myself down in relationships, whether I was actively conscious that they were bad for me or not.
Yeah, it's like I wanted something steady, like what the band was, what we had. 6-7 years of something constant.
Right, because I mean, I'm not going to go into like terrible detail about it, but like, I mean, you remember the first relationship I ended up in after the band, and it was 2 years on and off of like me at my absolute worst as a person and just as a friend, a family member. Like I all around, I literally sucked.
Yeah, we talk about this often. It's interesting how we've both kind of told our stories here, and we have all these different factors that sort of entered our programming into who we need to be out in the real world after the fun and games of college and being in a band are over. At some point we had to reprogram. Yep. And I know it took a couple relationships for you to kind of get there. And what was that like for you? Was there a certain turning point where like it happened so many times you had to stop and look inward? I mean, kind of share a little of that.
And that realization didn't even really come to me up until honestly like a few months ago.
Yeah, no, you and me are close on that one.
Yeah, which is crazy because essentially what led me to the point of where I am now and understanding that like all these relationships, especially ones that were vastly toxic for the most part, that I was using to fill voids elsewhere in my life, like not having music or any other like place I was really feeling empty. Getting to that point was really an act of insanity, repeating the same mistakes, because like it wasn't just me being with toxic people. A lot of that was myself too being toxic.
Oh yeah, we all have
not necessarily toxic towards my partner, but also being toxic towards myself.
Yep.
And it literally took me repeating that with literally 2 different women, expecting different results, and that's literally the definition of insanity. So I think I literally just like had to go crazy for a little bit. And granted, me saying a little bit was actually altogether 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So it took me a long while, but like I'm always the type of person where sometimes I have to learn my lesson the hard way. And
dude, me too.
I like it is what it is, and at this point, I've very much accepted that about myself. So even though it took all that time to get there, I'm glad I have at least arrived at the point where I understand what I'm doing, how I was operating before is just bad news.
Yeah, it's interesting too, like how you want to be right about people, right? Like you want to.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It's a huge ego thing.
How many times have I tried to do that, dude?
Dude, me too.
And I know Chris can vouch for that as well. Anyone in our band can vouch for that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like, I mean, you know how I was. Like, I'm the type of person in relationships where it's like I'm constantly trying to please the other person, despite if that's helping or hurting me.
Well, because that's toxic for you ultimately. If it's
right.
And then you start becoming toxic. And the number one lesson I have learned, I think, from toxic relationships, I know when things are wrong when I start thinking that wasn't me. Like I had an instance with my last girlfriend where I completely freaked out, started yelling and throwing shit. And it's like, dude, that's not who I am. And at that point is when I should have said, "Hey, I need to back away." Now I know that. Now I know that not only are there boundaries that you need to set for other people, there are boundaries that you have to set for yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like I was saying with myself, with me, it was a lot of recognizing reoccurring patterns and just getting to the point where I'm just like, even if I have the urge to continue being that person, I'm just like, no one likes that dude. You don't even like that dude, so just don't even do it.
Yeah, it's just not worth it. I mean, in the right relationship isn't that, you know, like I'm in a relationship now where everything, I mean, right now is so easy. I mean, in general, things should be easy. You shouldn't be yelling at people, oh, tuna casserole and start slamming shit. You know, like,
Right.
there shouldn't be trust issues and there shouldn't be toxic behavior. I'm generalizing because I can't think of specific examples other than what I've dealt with.
Yeah.
Shit, I just kind of lost my train of thought.
But at the
Pick
end
up
of the
for
day,
me.
at least my train of thought has always been like, for the most part, and like you're never gonna see eye to eye 100% of the time
No,
with your partner in a
no.
relationship. But that's life, you know. You're not always gonna be agreeable with everyone in your life. But at the end of the day, I've always really, you know, thought that a relationship, out of all the stresses and crazy things we deal in life, from family life, our personal lives, and our professional lives, that like, especially being an adult with how busy we are, that should be one of the easiest and most enjoyable things in your
Yeah, it
life.
should enhance your life. And I think where I was going before is like, it really all comes down to like respect, right?
Yeah.
Respect and like a willingness to understand. And a willingness to understand does not mean trying to win an argument. It's not about.
Right.
It's not about that. I've been trapped in that freaking rabbit hole, bro.
Or just like trying to go into any relationship with the mindset that like, hey, this relationship is going to fix me and my problems.
Yeah, because it
'Cause they
won't.
don't do that.
It won't. And they always say, the old cliche and moniker for all this is, you have to love yourself before you love someone else. And like, honestly, it's really true. And people confuse what loving yourself really is. And I think you and I talked about this the other day when you were here, was, loving yourself isn't just like, oh, of course I love myself. It's me, like whatever. No, like love is active. It means like exercising and eating correctly and doing things you need to do, whether it's creative, filling those holes that have been emptied throughout your
like,
life, hanging around with the right people, not people that make you feel bad, working the jobs that don't make you feel like a useless number. It's
right.
it's actively loving yourself like you are someone that you are in a relationship with.
Right. And I'm glad that you use the term active in association with that, because like a lot of people think that like self-love is just something that's happening subconsciously or just on its own. It's like, no, it's like with any relationship, even one with yourself, like you need to actively be putting in effort. It's not just going to happen.
Right.
And as tough as it can be to treat ourselves right, especially like my biggest thing is like the battle between, whether do I sit down and eat or do I go do something active for my body to try to keep myself healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in all of our relationships, like even if our intentions are at their best, sometimes we make mistakes and we don't always do the right thing.
Yeah, and you
like,
have to forgive
we all
yourself.
do that. Yeah, we all do that to ourselves constantly, but the big battle with it is just being patient and being able to forgive yourself, and being, when you fall off that horse, so to speak, just being able to get back on and be like, okay, let's pick up where we left off.
Treat yourself like someone you love, like you would treat them. Like you make a mistake, be patient. Like know your worth. Know that you're not like deserving of whatever pain you're feeling. No one deserves that. We all make horrible mistakes. I've made terrible mistakes, and I've beaten myself up, honestly, for what? I think everyone deserves a second chance, especially yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes we do fall into those holes and those patterns where we dwell on things, and that shame for whatever actions we feel that we should punish ourselves for really snowball into something bad.
Where do you think that comes from? Why do we do that? Why do we beat ourselves up so badly? Is it just a lack of
honestly
love for yourself?
Sometimes it's easier than acknowledging what actually needs to be done to not repeat those actions.
Sure, it's easy to wallow, right? Misery
Yes,
loves
it's
its
very,
company.
like, once you start wallowing, yeah, like you said, misery loves company. So like once you start wallowing, it's really easy to fucking get really deep down that rabbit hole. I know I've spent far more time in my life that I would like to admit, like just bathing in my own self
Yeah,
pity.
dude. We used to call you Eeyore.
True story.
Sorry, guys. I've said way worse things to Kane before. I can promise you that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice beard, by the way. Look great if we just shaved it off you, huh? Look better on my floor.
Yeah, so I look like I'm 10.
We used to tell Kim when we were drunk that we were gonna shave him and bang him.
Yeah, still one of the most confusing things about you guys
I don't
to
know,
this day,
man.
but it is what it
It
is.
was we were just like, no wonder why there was toxic energy left over, is because we would just say the most rude shit we possibly could think of to each other because we thought it was funny.
Yeah, we were pretty fucking rude with each other, no doubt about it, at some time or another. But at the same time, we were like, when the going got tough, like we were always there for each other. Like we knew when to stop being assholes when something serious was going on. We were like, okay, like this needs our attention. Let's help our boys out.
Yeah, and even like when things were tough too, like when we had to kick John out of the band, that sucked. That was really that
dude,
was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
I was really upset going in from the moment we arrived at Cam's house that day when we knew it was going to happen to the moment he left. And for like, it was constantly on my mind for the following like month. Like every day I thought about that because it was just like, didn't want to kick out one of my boys, you know?
Well,
like,
it sucks to disappoint. It's one thing to disappoint yourself, but to like disappoint someone that you love, and I do love John.
Yeah,
we all did. That really sucked, you know. But that I mean, was a business decision.
I think at the end of it, like he, I think he at least understood that like there was obviously personally no bad blood between any of us towards him.
Yeah. I just saw him this weekend. I anytime he did something stupid, I was like, dude, this is why we kicked you out.
Of course he did.
I think it's important to have a sense of humor about shit. We never talk about that. I think
absolutely.
Humor is how I deal with shit.
I mean, obviously, you never want to take things too far, but you know, you always want to be able to healthily bust someone's chops.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Like, especially around your friends and your family. Like, if you can't just poke fun at each other a little bit, like, not everything has to be super serious all of the time. Because part of being lighthearted and, you know, poking fun of each other is, like, kind of taking your attention away from all the bad things that are happening, making each other laugh.
It's also knowing your fucking audience, too. You know, you gotta you gotta be like really careful.
Of it. Absolutely know your audience.
Yeah, especially in today's world. Times are tough right now. Times are weird.
Yeah.
I got some more stuff in my notes. I don't like to like stick too hard to them. So let's just talk about like where we're at now. Where you're at now. You said you're in like I think the way you phrased it to me the other day when I saw you is that you're in like clarity. It's like the clearest you've felt in years. Now why do you say that?
A lot of self-reflection and just, you know, I can't remember what the first negative pattern I picked upon of mine. It was probably toxic relationships. That once I kind of identified that like these patterns and I know not to repeat them, that kind of got the ball rolling with me with trying to fix or not necessarily fix, but at least work at other negative aspects in my life and how I can change those or begin to change those for the positive. And that just got the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing led to another. And like that recently led me to the point of discovering that like, hey, I've been drinking too much. So stop doing that. And that's made me a lot happier.
Yeah. Talk about that. 'Cause like, I think drinking is like so ingrained in our culture and it's so normalized. Like it's even more normalized than like talking about your mental health, like way more normalized.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like actually messed up because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, like think about it. You can't turn on a TV without not even seeing it on just an advertisement for like Budweiser or Smirnoff or whatever. But like even in like popular television shows that we're watching, like there's people drinking. It's everywhere. Like you pretty much can't avoid it.
Yeah.
Unless you're actively trying to just not go out into society ever.
So what was it about it that made you want to quit? Did you think it was just too much? You were just doing too much of it? Or did you not like who
Yeah,
you
and
were when you were doing it?
both.
Yeah.
So it took me up until about a little over a month ago to really acknowledge that, like, pretty much almost every weekend I've had for like 10, 11 weeks were pretty much for the most part just benders for me. And that's obviously not healthy, especially going back to work on my Monday and just being like, what the hell even happened with my weekend?
Right.
Drinking myself to the point where like I could barely recollect like what I had done the day before.
Yeah, to where it's like actually negatively affecting your life. And I think that comes with age too.
Oh, absolutely.
You just get tired of it.
Yep. Like I said earlier, like part of recognize these things is like genuinely getting tired of yourself, tired of those negative actions. Because I mean, like, for a lot of the reasons that we repeat negative things like that is because like you either brush it off or you kind of in your head you lessen it to like the point where it's like, oh, this isn't as big of a deal as I'm really making it out to be. But then like upon acknowledging that and looking back and being like, for me with like drinking, it was like, hey, like I'm really getting nothing positive out of my spare time.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
And that's not good. And like I was spending way too much money between like just like food and drinks, and like it was just bad.
It just gets to be too much. It really does. You know, it's
Especially
different when you're younger, and I'm not enabling it, but I feel like your younger days you have a little more room to screw up.
That, you know? And you're far more resilient, I feel, at least physically.
Physically, for sure.
Because like now it's like if I get a hangover, it's literally like a 24-hour ordeal where like I have this big cloud of shame over my head, raining just bullshit on me and all this negativity, and then physically feeling sick, which is
it's
awful.
It's terrible. And dude, I'm really happy that you like reached a point where you're saying like enough is enough. I feel like we all have to do it at some point, and that's actually a good segue into where I'm trying to get. It's I don't forget the word for it. It's extending beyond yourself, you know, and trying to help people. Now, how do we teach people? How do we show people that, you know, you can be better and you can share your story and it's okay? Like how do we give people the confidence to put themselves in a better place? You know,
honestly, little things like, for instance, literally what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, find places where you can find a space where you can feel safe among people that you also feel safe admitting your truth to.
Yeah, you got to be safe in sharing your truth. You should always share your truth, but a lot of people aren't going to like it.
A lot of it is, you know, especially the way we treat other people and other people's, you know, own issues, whether it's with their mental health or any negative aspect going on in their life, like, especially with our friends and loved ones, like, not everyone is just going to openly come out and be like, hey, I really need to talk to you. I'm going through some shit right now. You know, like, especially with the people we love and that we know pretty well, sometimes we might be able to identify that someone's having a bad day and try to calmly and like not pry or anything, but like approach them, just, you know, at least let them know that like, hey, if you need to talk about something, I can listen to you.
Yeah, no, and you're not alone either. And dude, I think it's not even how we talk to people in their negative places and meeting them there. It's also meeting them there and how we talk to them in their positive places. Like, there's a lot of toxic behavior. I'm dealing with this at my workplace right now. People are so mad because like I do shit other than work. Like, I have a life outside of work, and some of these people are there all the time and they're unhappy with their own lives. And like, all I want to be like is like, hey dude, like, my life and my successes have nothing to do with your life. And if you're the person doing that and you're bothered by someone else's success or happiness or anything, realize that like it has nothing to do with you. Instead, choose to be empowered in your own story. What can you do with your own story to turn it around to where you're feeling good? Like, when you see someone happy, it makes you happy too. Instead of shoving a fucking something into the wheel of their bicycle. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
absolutely. Like and like I know for a lot of us, if we're feeling especially salty about the things that are going on in our own personal lives, and like you hear about someone, whether it's a friend, coworker, someone else in your life that has like really good news or is just like really upbeat and like into it, like that should never be frowned upon. Like if anything, you should celebrate that. Like you shouldn't have any sense of jealousy or negativity, like just because you may be going through it right now. Like, hey, it's first of all, that's a chance to acknowledge that there is chances for happiness because there's someone around you who's literally talking about it. Like it is possible, and that we should celebrate any positive things that we can bring to light, acknowledge that, and
Right.
don't rain on someone else's parade.
Right, because that's just like being
Not good for anyone.
positive and celebrating other people is just going to bring more positivity. That's ultimately going to come back to you. Maybe they'll take you along
Absolutely.
for the ride. As
Yeah.
opposed to being that negative person that just has something nasty to say. I would say if that's you, again, like look inward. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you or a bad person, but I'm telling you, and that's what all this is about, is that there's another way of dealing with it. And other people's lives shouldn't have too much, I mean, to an extent, shouldn't have too much of an effect on your mental health. It's not, if someone is doing well, it's not a downfall in your existence. Like this shit isn't a race.
Absolutely.
We're not in a race to happiness. And happiness isn't just like this thing that comes and stays. Like happiness really ultimately is just peace and self-love and how you treat other people ultimately is protecting that peace, right?
Right, but at the same time, like that, you can't, like you said, you can't expect that happiness to just happen. Like you need to manifest that yourself.
Yeah, you do, because you're right. You can't expect you from other people. You can't. I spent a lot of years trying to do that, Kane. This this
Oh
lady's gonna
yeah,
treat me just like I treat her.
yeah.
Well,
You
guess
can't
guess what,
expect the
Trev
same
Shred?
treatment.
You're gonna have a you're about to have a bad fucking time. Yeah, man, it's great, and I'm really happy for you that things are turning around for you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You know, I know that we were all kind of in that mindset for a while. Is why are things happening to me this way? Kind of wallowing, but it's not really about why is this happening to me. You get older and you start to see like what is this teaching me? What is life trying to show me about
Yeah,
myself?
that's kind of how I look at it too. I don't necessarily focus so much now on the why is this happening to me, or as much as what can I learn from it and what can I do to make it better? How can I kind of, once I realize something that bad is happening, whether it's depression, anxiety, impulsivity from my own ADD, like try to stay ahead of it a little bit. Like, what can I do to kind of ease the blow of whatever's happening? How
Hmm.
can I learn to actively grow with this?
Yeah, do your best to like get outside of your head on it. And I know I made it just sound so
So
easy.
much easier said than
Yeah,
done. Holy
it
cow.
doesn't work like that. So like how this was segue into the next thing I want to talk about. How do we get out of our heads? How do we get out of our heads? What do we do? It
Honestly,
can be little things too.
I'm still asking myself that same thing every freaking
It's
day.
different for
It's wild.
everybody, right?
For me, a lot of that is staying grounded. Like a lot of people, you hear people saying things like one day at a time.
Hmm.
For me, especially with my impulsivity, especially if it's towards something positive, like I react really strongly to it. So like a lot of that is me needing to stay grounded and present in the moment at hand, not even the day, like just handle it one moment at a time.
How do you do that? Is there like any like some people it's like breathing. Like they have
Breathing
different.
and meditation, I'm still beginning to scratch the surface with, and because of my ADD it's really hard to successfully do,
Dude, I can't do it.
but
Can't do it.
it's the more I hack away at it, the better I am at getting it, and because of that it is helping manage my ADD a little bit more, which is sweet. It's very difficult though to have that patience with yourself though, especially for me,
Well, that's
who's
it.
someone naturally a very fidgety person and can't sit
Yeah.
still.
I think that's the start of how do we get out of our head is saying, hey, like it's okay that you feel anxious. And that's like a point I learned from my therapist. She would always say, stop saying you are anxious. You feel anxious. Like don't become whatever it is that you're feeling. And that's like a good step to kind of removing yourself from that negative thought space. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's where I feel meditation comes in handy a lot. Like the times where I feel like I'm really locked in and I'm getting what I want out of it. Like a lot of the meditations I do are guided meditations, like someone's talking. They maybe start with walking you through some deep breathing and then delving into other things. But one thing I've learned, and this has been one of the hardest things about meditation, is to, a lot of people have this misconception about meditation where like you're not doing it successfully unless your mind is 100% clear.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the guided meditations that I've listened to, they talk about how like it's okay to acknowledge whatever thoughts you're having, but do just that, acknowledge them, and
Just
then
let them
move
go.
past.
Yeah, let them go.
Yeah, just learning to realize, hey, they're there, but you need to let them go.
Yeah, that's really important, and it just gave me like a really good thought on this whole thing. Like, how do we get there? I think going outward a lot of times can be negative. I think there's more outside influences to how we can deal with ourselves. Other people's opinions, the news, what we read on Facebook, whatever. But I know for me, and I know you can relate because we're both musicians, is going inward towards those feelings.
Yep.
Like for me, it could be dragging out these feelings in a creative way and putting them on paper, literally getting them out. Whether it's a song or something anyone can do, exercise, getting on a treadmill or lifting that bar is sort of a meditation.
For me, that's still music. Like whether that's outside of like both of my band's rehearsal times or anything, like even just sitting at home and just picking up my bass and just kind of noodling around and seeing how I'm feeling is being translated out of myself, because for me, I can rarely ever do that with words.
Yeah,
so that's why music.
We have to face our feelings and our thoughts one way or another, right? So yeah. I think that's what it boils down to. How do we get to this place of
absolutely? Because I mean, the first step to Zen. Solving any problem, whether it's within yourself or in the outside world, is admitting that there is a problem, and you gotta be like, hey, whatever it is, whether it's an addiction, your own anxiety or depression or anything that you feel is just becoming unmanageable, you really have to sit down and, like, as much as you don't want to, you need to sit down and acknowledge that and look at it and be like, okay, this is what it is. Where do I go from here? That's
right.
a jumping off point.
Right, and that's different for everybody too. I know.
Right.
I had a gentleman on here, One Black Patch. Follow One Black Patch if you're listening. He was saying how for him, because he's so anxious and like sporadic and impulsive, like the way he does it is he does little things like make his bed in the morning. Like little things like that help him start his day with control of what's going on. Because he would say if his bed is not a mess, then his bed doesn't start as a mess. Or if his bed is not a mess, his day doesn't start as a mess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like for me, like looking at that sort of thing, for like if I were to practice that in my own personal life, it'd be like, okay, I did something positive. Like I'm not just leaving my room a mess. I'm gonna make my bed and pick up dirty laundry off the floor or whatever. Like I started off the day on a good note. Let's try to keep the ball rolling.
See, and it's interesting because for me, and like I'm anxious, but for me that doesn't matter. Like that shit does not fucking matter at all because it feels like work. Like the monotonous things don't matter for me. I am someone who everything I do is very like intentional, and all the things I do have a lot of meaning towards them. So it's my job in taking care of myself to make sure that the things that I consider meaningful in my life, like relationships, my art, music, writing, any other projects like this, are done the right way. And that's kind of where I find my zen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that, like I said, you can see that's just two examples. Two people that both deal with anxiety. You just turned blue. What the fuck is that?
Oh, my TV is back on.
Yeah, two people that deal with anxiety. Three, if we include Kane, and we all deal with it different ways. So what do you do now? Do you have like a routine now, or anything you do every day?
Not yet, but I'm trying to get that down because of like, I mean, obviously you know what I do, but for those people out there watching, like I work third shift at a group home, so because of a lot of what I do, because I'm constantly taking care of people and, you know, cleaning and cooking for them, it's hard for me to get into a routine in as far as self-care, and that's been my biggest battle. But you know, anytime I can take advantage of doing that, I will. Now, instead of like choosing to just sit down and be lazy and watch TV or something, you know, I'll try to do something positive for myself.
Yeah, you got to find that time for yourself. I saw you were playing hockey this past weekend.
Yes, it was exhausting.
Guys getting after it again.
Yeah,
That's
I literally
cool.
worked all night and then just went home, and Tyler and I drove out to the courts, and we played hockey with the boys. It was fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I find that, again, like, this is why I have such a hard time going to the gym. It feels like work, like it feels monotonous. So like exercise, whenever I figure out what the hell this is going to be with COVID and everything, I'm probably going to end up being a wrestler growing up. I'm probably going to start like doing jujitsu or something, because it needs to feel meaningful. Yeah, and that, again, that's just who I am. Some people can do it, like my sister will get on a damn treadmill and just 10 miles and just go, and that's her meditation. And she takes care of.
That can do it.
I think like that type of exercise works really well for people who work a lot and only have 30 minutes, like legitimately have 30 minutes themselves. My sister is an ER nurse, for those of you listening, and her life is pretty crazy right now. She's getting married. She doesn't have a whole lot of time, so for her to like find that little time to like be in the zone and just focus on her footsteps and the music, that's like, that is huge. Whereas we're so much different. I'm so much different than my sister. Do you find yourself super different from your siblings?
Yes and no. It's weird. Like, personality wise, we're all pretty different. But at the same time, we still all have a lot of similarities, just because we're raised under the same roof.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, like, I definitely conduct myself differently in my own personal life than my brothers do. But I mean, like, their lives have become vastly different from mine, especially because I'm the only person from my generation of my family currently that doesn't have their own kid. They're all off doing like the family thing, which is, it's great. I love having my nephews and my niece run around.
I forgot Mike had one.
Yeah, dude.
That's wild. It's definitely send him my hello. He's a good dude.
Definitely.
He is a good dude. All the Canes look exactly the same. Actually, I never met your oldest brother, but you and Mike are the same. Dude, it's just like these crazy full beards, like the fullest beard you've ever seen in your life. Your brother has it. So do you.
And I think both of my brother's beards growing a lot thicker than mine do.
Does your dad have a beard?
He's never kept one, but he definitely has the ability to grow one in like 3 days.
That's pretty wild, man. Mine's growing in. I don't like to let it grow out too much when I start to look poofy.
Well, that's just when you trim it up a little bit.
Especially if I'm like swollen beers often, I start to look a little fluffy around the face,
It happens.
But
it's getting cold out, and it's going to keep you warm.
I know, that's true. And that's another thing we got coming up is we have COVID depression, which is a real thing, and now we're going to add wintertime on top of it. People can't go for hikes anymore. How have you dealt with COVID? I mean, you've been working the whole time.
Oh, yeah. Like, honestly, because of what I do, not much in my life has really changed. The only change really was at the beginning when everyone was, like, quarantining real hard. Like, at that point in time, if in the company that I work at, if you had, like, a COVID symptom at all, you had to, like, call a supervisor, and they would tell you to quarantine for 2 weeks. And a lot of people in the company were taking advantage of that when they were actually fine. So I, at the beginning of it, was working a lot of overtime, like a lot of 12-hour or longer shifts. And so that was really stressful. And then on top of it, literally not seeing anyone but my roommate, which was both a blessing and a curse. And like my roommate and I literally get along super well. Like I've the year and a half I've lived with him, I've never even had a single argument with him. So it was a lot of us being bored, like live streaming like concert series and stuff, and hanging out, playing a lot of video games.
Yeah, it's I can't help but think like what it must be like for some people that are really really struggling right now. And like I know that like a lot of therapist offices are closed, and I talk about it here. Like there are resources out there. There are a lot of people doing sessions online.
Yeah,
which is great. So like keep an eye out for those. Like the thing is, people feel like mental health, like taking care of it. People think it's like too expensive or it's not available to them. Like from what I've discovered, and I mean, I'm not trying to speak for everybody. What I've discovered, like if you don't really need to have that much money, like they'll set you up on a payment scale or whatever. Even if it's $100 appointment, you can only pay $20 that day.
right. Like say
they'll hook it up.
If you don't have insurance, and to anyone out there, and you feel like you need to seek professional help, like don't let money be a means of deterring you from that, because you're gonna have to do a little bit more digging with probably finding someone that's geographically a little bit closer to you.
Sure. Yeah, because not everyone's gonna take you.
Just getting you, there are payment plans and things like that, and like trust me, it'll be the best money you've ever spent.
Yeah, don't let money get in the way. You're absolutely right with that. Like, because ultimately, to me, it seems almost like an excuse, because help is there literally for everyone, and that's just in the United States, and that's just here in Connecticut. Again, I can't really speak for everyone, but I just know like how desperate I was, and the change that I saw in myself and the growth. You know, it's not like I got answers right away, but I was able to, $100, no insurance, in and out the door in an hour with a wealth of knowledge that I hadn't gained in my 25 years at the time. Like you said, it's invaluable almost.
Yeah. And
it's tough though, because, a lot of people say, hey, my therapist sucks. I'm not really getting anything out of it. Try someone else. There's all kinds of therapists out there. It's just like meeting
I've gone
people.
through many therapists myself. It's like any relationship. Like you need to find someone that clicks with you.
Do you still go? Have you been?
Not currently. I've been thinking about going back, at least just to have like basically a check-in with myself, because what I find invaluable from the experience is someone who, if you can't objectively look at yourself from the outside, someone who can do that and is a professional and knows their stuff and is going to tell you what's going on, or at least what they believe is going on with you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and they should at least,
Because sometimes, especially for me, sometimes we need those hard truths.
Yeah, we do. It's crazy. But the thing about it is, like, you're only going to learn it on your own. Like, therapy is going to show it to you. But ultimately,
it's going to guide you a little bit and basically just provide you with some tools that you probably didn't have before to cope with certain situations when they're happening. Like, a lot of what I took from my therapy sessions were things that I could do when I felt I was having an anxiety attack or a panic attack.
Yeah, talk about that.
To try and lessen that blow. And for me, for an anxiety attack, a lot of the things I was taught don't work. But the things I have learned to deal with panic attacks have actually been invaluable. Because like earlier at the beginning of the show, when I was talking about my first like ever panic attack, ever since then, I've been able to catch some telltale signs in myself when it's happening.
Right.
So I mean, like I go through at least a few anxiety attacks every day, but like I have the tools now and through my own trial and error to deal with those things and get past them pretty easily. But when a panic attack comes, at least in my opinion, for how they affect me, if I don't acknowledge that they're happening quickly enough, it's going to spiral the hell out of control, and I'm going to be in a bad situation. But for me, fighting those were deep breathing exercises. Because like I was talking about the meditation, sometimes I struggle with the deep breathing too because of my lack of focus. But when I feel myself spiraling out of control into one of those panic attacks, it almost helps sharpen my focus, because like I'm really like acknowledging like, okay, this is going down. Like I gotta not let this be as bad as it could be. And then I'll just close my eyes. I'll clench really tight fists as hard as I can. Start taking series of deep breaths, holding the breath in, letting them out for a few seconds. Do a few rounds of those, and then I'll move into other patterns of breathing.
Yeah, it's really just like a mindfulness exercise, reminding yourself where you are in the universe. Mine is when I feel panic coming is my therapist taught me, and I've talked about this on here, but I'm gonna do it again. Is I close my eyes and I go through all my senses. You know, I can smell food cooking, I can taste whatever I just ate or gum I'm eating. I can feel my knees under my hands, the floor beneath my feet. It's warm in the room. You know, again, it's reminding yourself where you are in the universe and not that you were anxious.
Absolutely. That's a tool that I use myself. Like, I acknowledge and really focus on, the feeling of the chair against my back, my feet on the floor, my hands at my side or wherever they're resting, and really trying to put my focus more on that and my breathing, my physical self, instead of what's going on up here.
Yeah, and it's, again, it can be different for everyone, but that is one that I feel like I've heard time and time again works for everyone with anxiety.
Now, it can definitely be a powerful tool, and most of the people that I know, it's definitely worked for. So for anyone listening, if you struggle with anxiety, look up some exercises like Travis and I just talked about, and read up on them anytime on your own.
Yeah, even like YouTube is a wonderful resource. You type in anxiety solutions, or I'm having a panic attack. There's all kinds of different things you can look up. Now, what about depression? How do you deal with when the sads come after you?
Oh, that for myself is more complicated than dealing with the anxiety, because I feel like for me it has to be treated a little bit different per like what's putting me in the depressive episode to begin with. And a lot of that for me is at least once a day, no matter what I'm doing, try to make time for something that I genuinely enjoy doing that's going to take my mind off of it. So for me, this could be anywhere between playing a video game to, maybe hanging out with my roommate or one of my friends, or sitting down and playing bass and playing music.
Or listening to music.
Or listening to music too.
Yeah. That's mine. All similar to you. It's not necessarily distracting, but like meaningful distractions that sort of acknowledge it. That's why music is so good, because it'll be in like the lyrical content or general like mood of the song, but also so you're not just sitting in it.
Yes.
Yeah, look at us, definitely. Man. We've grown up, man, huh?
Yeah, still got a little bit more growing to do, but hey, we're getting there, man.
We're trying.
Yeah.
And I think we're about running out of time here, brother. It's been an hour and 21 minutes already. How about that?
No kidding.
Dude, the time flies. I think for now, the hour and a half is good. There's only, I feel, with regular dudes like us, there's only so much we can say in an hour and a half. I hope that one day I can get people in the field on here. I mean, that's like my ultimate goal. To get like a therapist on here or a nurse or somebody. I mean, I could probably even get my sister to come on, but that's not her area of expertise. And so she says, I can't do it. I can't handle it. But that's like a whole nother level of it, what she's dealing with. People come in and they're screaming, "Oh, Crispy Tips is in here." Bro, we're just wrapping it up. Where you been, bro? So we've had 2 band boys pop in. Well, I'm going to have to play some Painted Life when we close this thing up.
Oh, snap.
Dude, I've been jamming Painted Life a lot lately.
Dude, good.
It's been feeling really good.
Every now and then, like, it's one of my most played things on Spotify, because I've listened to it to practice to so many times that, like, if it pops up at any point, like, I always give it a listen through.
And you know what? To circle it kind of back, I think, like, in the times where I'm really down on myself and kind of wallowing, to like go back and listen and to have something that I'm really proud of, like, is super invaluable. And I'm sure like for you too, especially for me, like the lyrical content, because I wrote it. Like I can kind of retake myself through it, and
Right,
it's
and
just
even me, like I took a lot out of your lyrics that like I felt very connected to as well. As someone who didn't even write the words, but like that's part of I feel like what it's about, especially as someone who's writing lyrics. Like you want something that like you're feeling that people can relate to and connect to as well.
yeah, for sure. And for people who did, like that's awesome. And that's the same with this. Like if you come here and you connect with what we do, and you love what you're hearing, like definitely spread the word, like please. And it's not about me getting popular, it's about this idea of talking about our mental health getting popular. This is something that should be as normal as talking about our physical health. I broke my arm, or I chipped my tooth, or whatever it is. We need to talk about these things.
Yeah, man. I hope this helps for anyone. I hope it makes people feel more motivated or give them a little bit more confident to talk about what they're going through when they need to do it.
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. And if you feel like giving up, like don't, just remember that you're not alone, and that you are loved, and you will find it somewhere, whether it's on Twitch or it's in a song. We all deserve love and happiness and all that. Just be patient with yourself for one more day or one more hour or whatever it is, and do something. Do something to kind of keep your body moving, or your mind going, to kind of take you out of that space, whether it's writing lyrics or exercising or playing an instrument, whatever it is. There's something for you. There's meaning everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're feeling like throwing in the towel, just don't. Like, be patient with yourself. Learn to love yourself, and then actively love yourself every day.
You will. And it just takes time. Yeah. I think patience is the key. And we're two people who have been there. Like we're not doctors or therapists or anything, but we're two people that can sit here and say, hey, we've been there. And like your story might be crazier or not as crazy, regardless, it's valuable and it's valid. And it's not too late to get better, right?
No, never too late. And don't think that anything negative you're feeling is wrong. It's unique to you, and unfortunately it may be a part of you, but there is ways to get around it and cope with it and get to a better place in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna wrap her up. Kane, I appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you too. Love you, bud.
Is there anything you would like to say more to the people before we hang her up for today?
Keep on keeping on. Do what you need to do to enhance your own life, and don't be afraid to ever seek help, whether it's from a friend, from a professional, anyone. You're not alone.
Well said, brother. All right, guys, I'm going to send it to the end screen, turn on some tunes for you. Kane, I'm going to hang up the call. I will have this immediately. It'll be on Twitch if you want to go back and watch it, but I'll get it up. I'm off tomorrow, so I'm going to get it up on the YouTube channel so we can spread it around and people can watch it. Guys, thank you so much. I love all of you. I'll be on here Friday just talking. Kane, I love you, bro.
Love you too, bud. Thanks for having me again.
Anytime. Later, bro.
Come